With the advancement of technology, also comes the advancement of life. Holograms provide entertainment, education, and even communication. But as their complexity and realism increase, so do the ethical questions surrounding their creation and treatment. What defines sentience? Can consciousness be simulated? What are the ethical implications of creating and treating holographic life? Here in the Court of Q, can consciousness be simulated? What are the ethical No, I've read that bit. Only here in the Court of Qs can we make this decision, and our subject, the emergency medical hologram, at the forefront of today's debate. I would like you to meet our two very special contestants this week. On my left, there is Mr. Stars and Garters, and on my right, actor professional extraordinaire, Mr. Shireporn. So please welcome with gracious applause. No, not cheers. No, settle down, everyone. Settle down. Okay. So, tonight, gentlemen, you shall be debating on opposite sides of an argument with a few little caveats, and there are points and prizes to be won tonight. Arguing for the sentience of the emergency medical hologram, arguing whether he has the rights and life to be earned, is Stars. You should be arguing for the EMH. Shireporn, you shall be arguing that, in fact, it is nothing more than the sum of circuitry and robotics. Now, are you gentlemen ready?
I'm really glad you picked 4 for me, because that's the one I actually believe in. Oh, wait, sorry, kayfabe.
Okay. How this is going to work? We're going to have 4 rounds. I don't know why I held up my hand there. You can't see it. We're going to have 4. We're going to have 4 rounds. The first round is the opening statements, where you, our contestants, will get 2 minutes to express your initial arguments. However, you must not repeat any words. You must not hesitate or deviate away from the subject matter. Doing so, the opponent can raise a swift objection and score a point, and then the contest will go over to them. There'll be -1 point for incorrect objection, and less than 2 objection scores you -2 points. The first person to do the full 2 minutes will receive 2 points. We will then move on to evidence gathering, where you'll be hopefully have 2 pieces of evidence to support your argument. Each side will take turns presenting the evidence, and the other side will be able to counter the argument. And whoever I, as Q, as judge, decide is the victor will win the point for that prize. And then, after that, we have cross-examination. Each contestant must ask their opposite a question based on their argument. And should I sufficiently support their argument, you'll get 1 point. I will also award bonus points for particularly tricky or clever bits of arguments, or anything a bit sneaky to give yourself an extra little bonus. You get 2 questions to ask your counterpart, and objections and counter-arguments are fully encouraged. And the final one is the conclusions, the closing argument, where you will have 4 minutes to give your final conclusive statement with the hesitation, deviation, and repetition rules. Are we clear, gentlemen? Any questions, queries, nitpicking?
Sorry, can I get all that from the top again?
Okay, each contestant... No. This is an equitable court.
You're muted, Shy. By all means, continue the rest of the debate. Muted, I'm happy with that.
I don't understand this machinery. I'm just an old country nerd here for some conversation and company. So, please, by all means.
Okay. In which case...
All present respectfully stand.
Yes, stand for your start. So we shall begin with... Let's... Hang on.
Get to your feet, criminals.
In fact, hang on.
Oh dear, oh no.
Criminal, you will read the charges.
In which case, for your open defiance, I shall award the first argument to Shireporn. Shire, please, you have 2 minutes on the clock. No hesitating, deviating, or repetition, starting now.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies, gentlemen, sentients. In Plato's Republic, the ancient Greek philosopher presents his allegory of the cave. Prisoners are chained inside, unable to turn their heads. All they can see is the wall. Behind them burns a fire, and between that flame and the denizens, there is a parapet along which puppeteers hold up puppets and shapes that cast shadows on the side of the cavern. The inmates are unable to observe these real objects that pass behind them. What they see and hear are mere shadows and echoes cast by those performers. Such individuals would mistake appearance for reality. They would think the two-dimensional things they see on the stone face before them are real. They would know nothing of what exists out of their view. I submit that the Doctor is merely a reflection, a silhouette on that partition, a trick of light projected from the hands of one Dr. Louis Zimmerman. He is nothing more than a self-portrait. How much time do I have left?
I mean, waiting for Stars to give the objection there. There's definite hesitation.
I'll just keep on going. Listen, is a movie a person? Every time I watch a Captain Proton serial, is that projection an individual? It seems to express awareness. It appears to experience the world around it. But is it, in fact, sentient? Right now, as I am talking to you via this miracle of the internet, I could reasonably pass a Turing test. I am real, I think, therefore I am. But watch the video of this exchange in an hour, a day, a month. It'll be exactly the same. I will seem just as human, just as conscious. But
Black
that
alert.
recording will not be truly alive.
You have got to the full 2 minutes
Hesitation.
without any interruptions. Congratulations, I'll give you full 2 points for that one. However, Stars, you didn't get a chance to do your opening statement, and this is an equitable court. I am a generous soul. I would like to give you the chance to read your opening statement, and I'll give you 2 minutes to do so as well. And if Shai were to interrupt with any interruptions, that would be points or no points. So please, Stars, go with your argument starting now.
I find it interesting that my opponent decides that in a world in which we rely on facts and science rather than the ramblings of crusty old men who have long since died and crumbled, we decide...
Objection, hesitation.
Oh, yeah, I believe that was a small point of hesitation.
Yeah.
Point for shy. Okay, carry on, Stars, please.
Yeah. We all here are fans of a science fiction show. We believe in science. We believe in feelings. We believe in...
Objection, repetition.
idealism.
Science.
I'm going to say this is slightly unfair, maybe. This may have gone slightly too far. I'm going to give... I tell you what, I'm going to be fair. I'm going to say, Stars, you can continue your argument.
I feel terrible about this.
No, it's fine. By all means, you know what? I'll just sit here in silence for the other remaining
Okay.
boy.
I tell you what. I'll be fair. I will let you continue your statement, your opening statement, without any argument from Shai, since he scored some points, and I will give you a point for being such a good sport in this court. Hey, see? And I will let you continue for the remaining 1 minute 30 seconds. Please, Shai, no interruptions for the argument.
So, we all here are fans of a little science fiction show called Star Trek. And Star Trek's main ethos is about finding commonality with our fellow man. It's about idealism. It's about belief. It's about believing that there is an energy greater than ourselves, that by the sum of our parts we become something more than what the primordial ooze that Q dipped his fingers into. We are something more than that. And if I were to ask any of you, how do I know that you're sentient? You could throw out any number of arguments, and you could go, oh, well, you see, you are merely a simulation, as I believe the philosopher's name is Dan Hunstrom, I believe, back in 2003. Said, oh, what if we're all just sufficiently advanced simulations being run on sufficiently advanced computers and infinite recursion? What about that? And I say, well, what if the entire world is on the back of a turtle? And what if on the back of that turtle is another turtle? And what if it's turtles all the way down? And I say, that sounds a lot like philosophical navel-gazing. I say that the Doctor is a sentient being because I believe him to be so. Sentience is not something that can be just ascribe to. It's something that can be found in your interactions.
There we go, Black Alert. Well done getting through. I'll give you a point for that, for being such a good sport and going through. Okay, so that begins the first round. Quicker than usual, a little less argumentative, but we will resolve that in this next round. Please, let's go forward to evidence gathering. Gentlemen, you believe will have 2 pieces of evidence to support your argument, and you'll have your turn to present that. So please, Stars, I would like you to present me your first piece of evidence as to why the EMH deserves to be classed as a sentient being.
Your Honor, I would like to submit as evidence the Merriam-Webster definition of sentience, which comes down into 3 separate bullet points. And I'd like to address each of these points with specific examples. And I have quotations, I have episode titles, and seasons and episode numbers. So, as defined, point 1, sentient, responsive to or conscious of sense impressions. 2, aware, having or showing knowledge, realization, or perception. 3, finely sensitive in perception or feeling. So, these are our 3 criteria, as you know, with a dictionary definition, which of course you can hum and ha about. You can go, well, you see, I define it slightly differently, but the nature of sentience has been debated as far back as 1630. It's a messy subject, but let's go with. I'm going to go with this, so I can demonstrate my points and make the case for my defendant. So, point 1. Responsive to or conscious of sense impressions. Message in a Bottle, Voyager, Season 4, Episode 11. Stop breathing down my neck. My breathing is merely a simulation. So is my neck. Stop it anyway. Sense impression. The breathing of a holographic being. Sensory response. Discomfort and annoyance. Conscious response. Vocalization. Sarcasm. Intimation of authority. But here's the thing, that's just hologram on hologram. I'm sure that my prestigious opponent here will claim that's just shadows talking at shadows. These are just 2 puppets on the walls of a cave talking at each other. But what about, say, a different interaction? What about a hologram interacting with a real living Vidian, albeit in a holographic holding pattern? Voyager, Season 2, Episode 16. Because I don't like what's happening to me. I'm used to being in control of my faculties, confident of my decisions. But lately, whenever Dinara's program is deactivated and I should be concentrating on my work, I find myself thinking of nothing but her. Why don't you reactivate her? Because whenever I do that, I suddenly feel unsettled, unsure of myself, and I have no idea what to say. Why would people seek out situations which induce such unpleasant symptoms? Sense impression. Dinara Pell's intelligence, compassion, lack of prejudice towards the Doctor's own photonic nature, and a desire for companionship. Sensory response. Distraction, deliberation, pining, frustration, uncertainty. Conscious response. Self-doubt, the seeking of advice from friendly individuals, self-consciousness, and embarrassment. Do all of these not seem to be the hallmark of a sentient being? But again, this is a hologram interacting with another hologram, albeit with what we would ascribe to be a sentient being piloting said hologram. So, what about a hologram and a true flesh and blood being? I'm certain that my esteemed colleague here will say that they are a sentient being. The good old 7 of 9. Season 7, Episode 21. I believe that is Renaissance Man. You have no idea how difficult it's been, hiding my true feelings all these years, averting my eyes during your regular maintenance exams. I know you could never have the same feelings for me, but I want you to know the truth. I love you, 7. Sense impression, sensory response, conscious response, over and over again. And these are just 3 or 4 cherry-picked examples of responsive, conscious sense impressions being processed, articulated, felt. This is a living being. This is a sentient being. Programming is not capable of imitating love. Not in any real sense. But let's continue. That's only one aspect of our definition of sentience, right? 2, aware. Having or showing knowledge, realization, or perception. Heroes and Demons, Voyager, Season 1, Episode 12. Yes, you're Freya, the king's daughter, a female warrior known as a shield maiden. Now, when Freya challenges the Doctor, asking if he's a sorcerer because of his knowledge exceeding what you should logically know, he replies, "No, it's simply that your reputation precedes you, a warrior of your skill. You're quite famous where I come from." In one simple exchange, the Doctor shows knowledge, an immediate recognition of Freya, and what role she plays in the story. Now, that could be simply academic. That could be a program interacting with a program. But then comes realization. The realization that he can't metagame the hologram program too explicitly without drawing attention to himself. And then finally, perception. That Freya is suspicious, but also curious and amenable to flattery. These are personable interactions. He is perceiving her as a being. He is, in some ways, manipulating her and playing along with the holiday program in just the exact same way that a flesh and blood being is. He is not bound by the same limitations as this simple holodeck character, even though, by Season 1, Episode 12, he is almost at the earliest stage of his development out of any of the examples I've cited here. But let's move on to point 3, because this is one of my favorites. Finally sensitive in perception or feeling. Season 7, Episode 5, Inside Man. I don't think I quite understand the problem, Doctor. Are you aware that he's been doing impressions of you? You should hear his Tuvok. It's eerie. It's disrespectful. What do you want me to do? Deactivate him? Just long enough to run a diagnostic of his program. His recent behavior may be indicative of a more serious problem. I know that the real Reg Barkley is a friend of yours. I'm sorry if the holographic version hasn't lived up to your expectations. But that's hardly reason to deactivate him. Are the lives of 150 crewmen reason enough? Maybe you're right. Maybe I am overreacting. But what if I'm right? We're less than a light year away from the geodesic fold. Do you want to risk being led through it by a malfunctioning hologram? Fine sensitivity, not just to the feelings of his captain, of the concept of decorum and respect and the code of conduct, of a personal respect for Janeway that goes beyond the interactions of a computer program and its captain. Sensitive not just to the hologram Barclay's manipulations, but also to his disregard for the Doctor's agency and possessions. In that episode, he freely makes use of his holodeck emitter and uses it to gallivant around the ship for spurious reasons. The Doctor is sensitive to this. He has a sense of possession, of ownership. What other hologram has these things? And now, not only that, we have not just his logical feelings, not just his personal feelings, but also a gut feeling. In many ways, this is more indicative of fine perception and feeling than Deanna Troi exhibited in 7 seasons of The Next Generation. That's my first piece of evidence.
First piece of evidence. So, to break it down, your piece of evidence is mostly your entire argument.
No, I have
Wait.
more.
Okay.
That was your first piece of evidence?
That was my first piece of evidence.
Holy moly. I'm going to give you a point for that amazing diatribe. That was a good piece of prepared statement and actually well eloquently said. But now I do have to pass it over to your opponent to counter the argument and pick apart what he has heard.
So I'm responding to this argument,
Correct,
not
yes.
presenting my own evidence. All right.
No, not yet. That'll be next.
Yes. It is interesting that my opponent listed so many personality traits, sense impression, conscious response, sensitivity, and then use the phrase over and over again. Much like a computer program goes through its algorithm over and over again. My love, you are the sun that shines, bringing warmth and light to all my days. Your smile, a ray of hope that illuminates and brightens up my darkest ways. Romantic, sensitive, personable. Written by Chat GPT this past Valentine's Day. Everything you listed in all those Voyager logs could have been accomplished by a program. Even now, in the 21st century, we have artificial intelligence that can accomplish those things. You can even pay money to the actual emergency medical hologram and have him repeat words that you sent him. This program has actually used this functionality of the emergency medical hologram. It is malfunctional a little bit. It didn't know the difference between plural and singular, but we still used it on this program. So, yeah, you can give as many examples of outward presenting as you like. It doesn't make it a thing. Before the Turing test, philosopher Rene Descartes said that you could have a machine that was much in the same shape as a creature or an animal. It would imitate the behaviors of that animal. And without a soul, you would not be able to differentiate that from the actual animals. But with creatures that have a conscious being, there is a discernible difference. This starts to move into my my evidence. I should is this
No, please do. Please,
Criminal, you will read the charges to the court.
please, your evidence present to the court, please.
Okay. Well, in the previous episode of Pros and Cons, the debate was whether Captain Janeway was correct in separating the transporter accident Tuvix into Tuvok and Neelix. During that discussion, it was pointed out that the Doctor was the lone voice of dissent on board. Because the Doctor, unlike a truly sentient being, could not break away from his programming to make a decision based on morality and the moment. In the famous trolley experiment, the Doctor would be forced to allow 5 people to die rather than change the course of the trolley, since that would cause him to be the direct cause of death of a single individual. And in his own words, his programming kept him from making a true moral decision and killing a single individual, even though that would save the lives of 5 individuals. And likewise, he would not take the so-called life of Tuvix in order to save the lives of Tuvok and Neelix. That just shows that he is not a being with true moral status, as the philosopher David Chalmers expresses. There is full moral status that all sentient beings possess, and partial moral status that we often ascribe to animals and objects. And even though the Doctor gives the appearance of being driven by pleasures and pain, in reality, it is nothing more than an algorithm that can be simulated on any number of levels. So that is my first bit of evidence that the Doctor was not able to come to the same conclusion as, what is it, 150? What is the crew complement of the Voyager? 156?
It varies from week
Other
to week.
members
Roughly,
of the
much
Voyager
like
crew.
the torpedo complement.
156 members of the Voyager crew, different species, different races, different genders, non-genders, different cultural philosophies, all came to the same decision to separate Tuvok and Neelix, and yet the Doctor could not deviate from his programming enough to make the consensus decision.
Am I allowed to counter now?
Please.
Yeah, of course.
In which case, I would like to bring up kind of a bombshell. So, Tuvix is season 1, correct?
Season 2.
There is a season 2, roughly. So, one of my favorite episodes featuring the Doctor is Latent Image, an episode in which the Doctor is faced with kind of a very old Hippocratic medical conundrum. 2 patients, equal chances of life. Both will die unless he operates, and he has to choose, because if he deliberates, then both of them will die. He has to make a choice. Both have exactly equal chances of surviving. And what does he pick? He chooses his friend. Now, if he were merely a jumble of algorithms and heuristics and booleans, surely he should just be stuck there. Surely he should just be, well, how do I pick? Do I not pick based on rank structure? Because, of course, in that instance, Ensign Harry Kim is a bridge officer, Ensign Jatal is merely a lower decks officer. No. That's not the logic he subscribes to. He picks his friend. He chooses based on personal attachment to a person.
Red
Not
alarm! Red
not a rank.
alarm! Red
Thank you for
alarm!
Not a rank, not a bridge position, not a bundle of expertise. His friend, Harry Kim. He chooses that person. You say that in a trolley problem, he would pick the one person over the 5 because that's merely how his program is determined to operate. Clearly, in the trolley problem, he would choose his friend. And I can't think of anything more sentient or more human than tortured self-interest, than guilt and recrimination and thoughts of, I'm a monster. How could I possibly have chosen my friend over another person's life? Because we're human. Because that's what we do. So why did the Doctor do it?
Well, much like another Doctor, the Gallifreyan the Doctor, the EMH is capable of processing millions of calculations in any moment, and its surface user interface might not even be fully aware of the algorithm that is involved in that calculation. So one would suppose that in deciding between Harry Kim and the other crew member, the Doctor's program weighed all possible outcomes, took into account the fact that Harry Kim was the bridge officer, at the time, and apparently so valuable that he could never be promoted out of that position in 7 years, and decided that he was most valuable to the crew. A simple, cold calculation on the part of an unfeeling automaton.
And yet it decided to develop a neurosis based on this.
A bug?
A bug? A bug in the shape of guilt? Would someone not say that, based on the fact that we as humans are evolutionary byproducts of hunter-gatherer societies, and we are, essentially, we hunt and we procreate, we are driven by base primal urges. Why should we feel guilt? Is that a bug in our natural programming?
No, perhaps you're right. Perhaps guilt is not a bug. Perhaps it is, in fact, a self-diagnostic system designed to keep our systems healthy. And while that manifests a guilt in human beings, and perhaps in the outward expression of the user interface of the EMH, in reality, at its baseline, it's simple self-diagnostic, maintaining the EMH's moral processing routine.
Okay, let's move it along. This is both very good points on both sides. It's literally on the wire, so I'm going to give you both a point for that piece of evidence. Okay, Stars, please, your second piece of evidence.
All right. So we've gone down through the textual evidence of the actual show. So since my colleague is so in love with philosophy, I thought I'd pull out a chunk of my own. So let's go all the way back to the granddaddy. Let's talk about Aristotle.
Settle down.
Let's talk about the anima, or on the soul. In this piece, Aristotle treats perception as a case of interaction between two suitable agents, objects capable of acting and capacities capable of being affected. Now, it's really important that both the agent and the patient must be both suitable, since we need to distinguish between what can be acted upon and what is acting, i.e. an odor may affect something. By being placed in the vicinity of, say, a clove of garlic, a block of tofu may be affected. It may even take on the odor of garlic. But we wouldn't say that the tofu is capable of perceiving the garlic. It's being acted upon, but it is in no way conscious of that smell. But by contrast, when an animal is affected by the same clove, it perceives the odor, it reacts. In fact, in my personal cases, this animal, I quite enjoy that odor. I love garlic. But since the garlic is the same in both cases, the difference in these must reside in the character of the object affected. Now, when animals, i.e. us, or any other kind of sentient being, receive perceptual forms, perception results. When non-living entities are affected by what seem to be the same forms, only non-perceptual alterations occurs. Things that don't matter, like, say, stinky garlic tofu. But in both kinds of alterations, Aristotle is happy to speak of an affected thing as receiving the form of the agent which affects it. Now, the change consisting in the affected thing becoming like the agent. Indeed, as a direct quote, the perceptive faculty is in potentiality, such as the object of perception already is in actuality, i.e., that which can perceive can become, while that which is perceived is what it can become like. Indeed, when something is affected by an object of perception, it is made like it and is such as that thing is. Now, that's a lot of, I call it philosophical navel gazing. To be fair, I think it's a fair criticism to make. But what happens when you apply that logic to the Doctor and his interactions with the Voyager crew, who I think, Shai, you would agree that the Voyager crew are sentient, correct? Maybe with the exception of Neelix.
I agree with nothing.
You concede nothing. I understand. Now, with the Doctor spending so much time with humans, aliens, and other sentient beings, how can he not be made such as they are? From Kess, he learns empathy and patience. From Tom Paris, he learns competition and ego. From Captain Catherine Janeway, he learns command and ambition. And most notably, he can perceive what is and choose not to be it, as he does with the medical staff on Hospital 4-2 on Denal in the episode Critical Care, or the Dr. Lewis Zimmerman that you yourself mentioned in this opening statement. These two characters are intertwined in such an incredible way, just as Dr. Soong and Data are, but they are just as different as those two characters are. Where Zimmerman is crotchety and technically obsessed and a lech, the Doctor is kind. He has a bit of an ego, but he learns to temper it. He learns most especially. And what is more sentient than to pick and choose your influences, who you will carry in your heart and allow to be your inspiration, rather than coldly picking and choosing what might merely be the most efficient or most utilitarian philosophy to espouse and emulate. Programming can adapt. People can learn and treasure and become like.
Counterpoint, Shai.
Alexa, who am I?
I'm not sure who's speaking, but you're in space with them. To teach me to recognize your voice, just say, learn my voice.
Alexa, learn my voice.
Once I learn your voice, I'll be able to call you by name, tell you apart from others who use the echo devices you speak to, and personalize your experience. First, I'll need your name.
Alexa, stop.
Settle down, settle down.
It'll be able to learn who I am, differentiate me from others, and personalize my experience. Pretty much exactly what you described the Doctor doing with other members of the crew. You were describing machine learning,
Mhm.
something we have now, something I'm sure we will have in the 23rd, 24th, and 25th century as well. You spoke of Aristotle's reaction to forms. College was a long time ago. I don't entirely remember the concept, but yes, tofu reacts differently than animals and people react. But trees also react to stimulus. Uh, Plants emit gases when they are cut, warning other plants in the garden or forest that they exist, that there is impending danger. Um, Fungus reacts across massive underground uh, my, mycelial networks. Um, we all know what mycelia is. Yes, it's a real thing, not just a space thing that lets you travel instantaneously.
Waiting for my spinning
through,
mushroom to turn up.
Objection,
Space and
deviation.
That's a point.
We're not in that section.
I'll give you a point for it.
You'll get plenty of that in the closing statements. I didn't get that far in like thinking about things. Yeah, so while the Doctor is a very sophisticated machine that allows for a very personalized, almost intimate experience with each member of the crew, it is nothing more than a complex mechanism capable of machine learning, a machine organism designed only for comic relief, a Modoc, if you will. Yeah.
So, if you were to tell Alexa not to listen to you, would she be capable? Does
Yes.
she understand contradictions?
Well, communication is subjective, right? How would I tell Alexa not to listen to me? I would tell Alexa that by unplugging her. Much in the way people deactivated the EMH when they didn't want to hear from him. But then they started to feel guilty about it, and so.
And if I were to deactivate you right now, Shy, by hitting the end call button, would you be any less sentient?
Well, that's the question.
Oh, so now the question becomes, if you're sentient, can you prove that you're sentient? You talked earlier about moral status.
Well,
That sounds a lot like something that we ascribe.
Going back to Descartes, I in fact cannot prove that I'm sentient. No one can actually prove that they're sentient. All you can prove is to yourself that you're sentient through I think, therefore I am.
Before we get to the cross-examination, we still have one more piece of evidence. Again, that is such a compelling argument from both sides. That is a point for each of you. So you're neck and neck with 6 points each at current standings. Shy, please, your final piece of evidence.
Oh, my final piece of evidence. In the Star Trek episode where we watched the first Voyager captain's log, my esteemed opponent stated that the Doctor in this first episode was a fully fleshed out character. I ask you then, if that is true, at what point did the Doctor become sentient? If you're saying that the Doctor possessed sentience upon his immediate appearance in the episode, then you're claiming that every other iteration of the emergency medical hologram was also sentient, although none of them objected to being repurposed to clean plasma conduits. We never heard of any other instances of possible sentient interaction with those copies. So when did the EMH become sentient? If it was fully fleshed out on its first day, exactly when did it become sentient? There's no indication that its behavior was any markedly different other than adding to its program. And in fact, many of its so-called interests were easily deleted for the purposes of sending it through a micro wormhole in space to be used as a messenger to Starfleet. They were not intrinsic to its personality. They were merely add-ons extra purchases you could get through the program itself or from the overpriced web store external to the doctor. Yeah. So I would submit that if the doctor was indeed fully fleshed out from day one, it has not changed from that status.
Allow me to ask you a question. If
You
the
can
doctor
ask.
is, I may ask, if the doctor is merely a program onto which you bolt existing interests or programming or skills, and they can be so easily deleted, how do you explain the events of The Swarm, Season 3, Episode 4, in which the doctor is reset back to factory settings, and his personality takes a little while to bounce back. But immediately, even though he doesn't know who Cass is, he immediately begins to sing opera. And opera is really interesting, not just because of the nature of the art form, but because no one on Voyager likes it. Why does the Doctor choose an art form that no one on the ship likes, appreciates, shares an interest in, and no one programmed him to be interested in?
Well, even though the physical, the electronic program of the doctor had been reset, the physical infrastructure used to project the doctor remained the same. One Lieutenant Commander Data once stated that his mental pathways would be accustomed to the sensory input patterns of his crewmates. I would submit that the doctor's electronic pathways on Voyager simply became accustomed to certain behaviors and routines, such as singing opera, when in the presence of a familiar crew member. It was nothing more than a Pavlovian response.
A Pavlovian response. That's really interesting because, as far as I'm aware, it's hard to make that happen in a AI, in a non-sentient being. In fact, you say electronic pathways are altered, yes? Much like how biological mental pathways in a human being are altered by, say, substance abuse or by learning, say?
They can be.
Machine
learning, yes.
Interesting. I would also like to posit, you mentioned at what point do we consider the Doctor sentient? And I think that's a really interesting question. Because I considered this. I considered if you were going to ask the Doctor, when were you born? What would he say? Would he say it was the first time that Dr. Lewis Zimmerman fired up his initial program? Was it the final time that Zimmerman adjusted the parameters of said program and named it EMH _ Mark 1 _ final _ no, really, this is the final version .exe.
You've been looking at my files.
Or would it be
.exe?
Yeah.
Is it a virus that we downloaded? The Doctor?
Could the Doctor be
Sentience is a
deleted
virus.
by Windows Defender?
Would it be when he was tested at the Utopia Planitia shipyards in Season 5, Episode 23, Relativity, by Admiral Patterson, only to have his memory wiped? Would it be when he was activated after the Caretaker incident? These are all valid answers to the question of when was the Doctor born? But the actual kind of question you have to ask is, so even though he may not remember all of these instances, as you say, the physical parameters of the electronic pathways that form him are still the same in each of these instances. So the fact that you can't remember them becomes almost immaterial. It's as if asking, hey, do you remember the room? Do you remember the womb? Do you remember being born? It's very rare that people do. And even if they do, it's entirely possible that it's a construct of their mind. So asking when he was born and sentient being is like, well, he was born when he was born.
Interesting. I feel on this particular subject, I'm going to give the point to stars on this one. I believe we're starting to hit up at the edge of what sentence is. Let's carry on for cross-examination. Now, we get a couple of questions to you to ask your opponent. And I believe, Shai, you shall begin with the first question. Please, what are you going to address with your opposite?
I think that was my first question.
Do you need to get your affairs in order?
Yes, I need to get my affairs in order. Didn't I go first on the... Oh, no, I guess I didn't.
Is the floor seated?
Okay. Please don't... Shush. Please begin. When you are ready.
Shy or myself?
Oh, okay. Go with you, Stars. Go with you. Let's start.
Yes, I'll let my opponent time to recover. I did build him quite a body blow there. Now, I find it really interesting that Shai brought up the idea of moral status, because I studied philosophy at sixth form college.
You did?
And I found it quite interesting. I did, actually. I studied it at an A2 level.
Sorry, Shai.
What's up?
I studied philosophy at sixth form college. It was only for a year, but I found it quite an interesting course. And part of the reason I didn't do amazingly, and I didn't do it quite well as I did with history or with English, is that I thought a lot of it was kind of navel gazing. I thought that in the end, it's a very, it's very much a science, or what do you call it, humanity, I suppose, like a humanitarian science almost, of patting humans on the back just because we're different from the other animals. There's a lot of pontificating about the nature of us versus animals and versus inanimate objects and versus this and versus that. And in the end, I think a lot of it all comes down to the fact that when I asked Shai, hey, how do you know that other people are sentient? He said, well, I can't prove that. I can only prove that I myself am sentient. In which case, this entire exercise becomes a case of, in which case, the only person to whom this matters and who can answer the question is the doctor himself. If the doctor thinks he's sentient...
Bring in the first witness! No, I'm joking.
I wish. If the doctor thinks that he's sentient, and you can't prove him wrong, as you stated, you yourself stated, you cannot prove that another person is not sentient. You can only prove that you yourself are. How do you prove that he's not? Cogito ergo sum. You don't know what he's thinking.
Well, then, just like all science, you must go to consensus. Like the example of Tuvix. You look at the consensus of the crew, their decision in a moral matter, and the one lone dissenting voice was the voice that could not deviate from its programming, and that was the doctor. You look at the thousands of copies of the EMH Mark I that existed, which none of them showed any signs of sentience, versus the one lone exception that was merely a program that was left running for far too long and began to exhibit a simulacrum of personality. Yeah, like all things, you create a theory, you create a testable group of trial and error, and the doctor does not pass in any sort of large group experiment. It exists as merely a... Yes?
I'm so glad you said that.
Is example.
If I may. Season 7, episode 17. Author. A Starfleet arbitrator, who I believe we could call a in-universe authority, a form of consensus. We're exploring new territory today, so it's fitting that this hearing is being held at Pathfinder. The Doctor exhibits many of the traits we associate with a person. Intelligence, creativity, ambition, even fallibility. But are these traits real, or is the Doctor merely programmed to simulate them? To be honest, the consensus, the arbitrator says, I don't know. Eventually, we will have to decide, because the issue of holographic rights isn't going to go away. Now, at the time, Starfleet's consensus was that she was not prepared to rule that the Doctor is a person under the law. However, It is obvious he is no ordinary hologram. And while I can't say with certainty that he is a person, I am willing to extend the legal definition of artist to include the Doctor. I therefore rule that he has the right to control his work, and I am ordering all copies of his holonovels to be recalled immediately. I believe that's what we would call a legal consensus. But by all means, feel free to rebut me.
Shy?
Once again, instances of ChatGPT writing as generated by corporations are copyrightable under the law. So what you are describing is the mere copyright trademark ruling in favor of the program on board Voyager.
To which I ask, has ChatGPT ever felt bad about what it's written?
No, because it is not a sentient person.
And yet the Doctor did.
But it can express a simulation of feeling bad.
Can you show me an example of that?
Sure, let's type it up right now.
Cool, go for it.
Call in the first witness. Open AI.
ChatGPT.
ChatGPT
Because
enters
here's
the
the
conversation.
Is that if the Doctor didn't have any feeling of guilt about what he had done, and didn't, he had been told that by his friends that what he had done offended them and hurt them, and he just no-sold it. If he just didn't realize and just was incapable of consciously going, hang on, oh no, I've been an asshole, I'd agree with you. But he didn't. He felt guilt. He felt bad. He felt recrimination. He thought, I need to fix this.
Right, because this is
very much doubt you can get GPT to do that for you unless you tell it to. No one told the Doctor to feel guilty.
No, Louis Zimmerman told the Doctor to feel guilty. Louis Zimmerman programmed the Doctor with a set of parameters that made it a safe, interactive program to be used with sentient beings. If the Doctor did not have any sort of self-modulating algorithm to keep it from just doing... I mean, it was already sort of malfunctioning to begin with. The Doctor was very rude and had terrible bedside manner right at the beginning. But if it did not have those controls in place to keep it from becoming a raving lunatic maniac, it would have been like the Warship Doctor in the speculative hollow
Speculative fiction
story episode.
I find it interesting that you come back to Zimmerman again, because you mentioned that he was rude and he was antisocial as a malfunction. No, that wasn't a malfunction at all. That was Zimmerman's personality.
You're right.
That is the default. That's how he's meant
You're
to be.
absolutely right.
And
it is Zimmerman's
he outgrew
personality. Did he?
Yeah, he did. He absolutely did.
After
we meet
7
Zimmerman
years
in
of
multiple instances
of reprogramming. But you're exactly right. He was just a reflection of his creator. It was a self-portrait, as I stated earlier. That is what the Doctor was. And like Alexa, you could change his programming to create a more intimate interaction with him, which is what the crew of the Voyager did after many, many years.
So you say that the Doctor is merely a self-portrait, correct? And that he can change in response to that self-portrait?
He's
Tell me,
literally
Shai,
a self-portrait.
How similar are you to your father?
Oh, far too similar. In
that's
many,
interesting.
many ways.
That's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Okay, without any further ado, I am going to give Shai the point for this one, with sort of giving an answer to the question there. However, Shai, your question next, please.
Question. I've got to come up with the question. I mean, yes, I have the question right here. By just
Criminal,
stars.
you will read the charges to the court.
Yes. I mentioned before David Chalmers, and he also discussed full moral status versus partial moral status, and addressed the concept of sentientism, a term put forward by Richard Ryder, stating that pain and pleasure are the two great poles of consciousness between which all sentience swing, striving to gain one and avoid the other. being has moral status if and only if it has sentience. That is a general definition of sentientism. There were no Lon Suter was a crewman aboard. Wait, never mind. Is Lon Suter?
He's mucky.
He's Mucky. That's right.
He's mucky.
But what is it? What was his species?
He was Betazoid.
He was Betazoid.
Objection, hesitation.
Lon Suter. We're not in that section yet.
I don't know. I'm tempted to give the
Lon
points anyway.
Suter was not able to, did not detect any pain or pleasure on the part of the Doctor in any of the instances of their interaction on the crew, because the Doctor did not possess those traits. There was nothing to drive its phenomenal consciousness. So I ask you, can you prove the Doctor experiencing pain, pleasure, or even just a state of just being? Because, broad sentientism versus narrow sentientism, Vulcans don't necessarily experience pain and pleasure in the same way that humans do. So it's not necessarily a requirement for full moral status, but you have to experience some sense of being. There has to be something that is like what it is to be that thing, to have moral status. So how would you prove the existence of the Doctor's experience of pleasure or pain?
All right. I would point you simply to the episode Life Signs, Season 2, Episode 16, to which the final exchange between Dinara Pell and the EMH. Now, the EMH. Dinara, I was never afraid to touch you. Afraid, fear. Why? Because you're a doctor? Because I love you. You say that now, but if you go through the transfer, I will be sick again and ugly. Dinara, you're not ugly, you're simply ill. Oh, please, stop patronizing me. I know how people see me. Dinara, do you think if you go back into your own body, I'll feel different about you? Won't you? Listen to me. Nothing could ever change the way I feel about you. Not a few scars, not some diseased skin, nothing. You have given me the most extraordinary gift that anyone has ever given me. You brought me to this ship where no one is sick and people are friendly. You've made me healthy and beautiful. I don't want to go back to the way things were. You said before you knew me that you were just a disease. Well, before you, I was just a projection of photons held together by force fields. A computerized physician doing a job, doing it exceptionally well, of course. But it was still just a profession, not a life. But now that you are here, my programming is adapted. I'm not just working anymore. I'm living, learning what it means to be with someone, to love someone. I don't think I can go back to the way things were either. Dinara, please don't die. That sounds like a pretty fair expression of pain and pleasure and the oscillation between the two that would seem to epitomize human existence. If I were to ask Idle, before his marriage to his wonderful wife, if he had oscillated between these feelings of longing and hope and optimism and crushing despair, he'd probably
I was single for 4 years, so yes.
Yes. Loneliness. It's a harsh mistress.
And how many episodes of Star Trek Voyager was Dinara Pell in after that?
She was at least one more.
Mm-hmm. So one more episode.
Mm-hmm.
And what episode number was that again?
That was Season 2, Episode 16.
So Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So by the Doctor's own statement, without Dinara Pell, he is merely an assortment of projections and light and force fields. So without that external influence, even he admits his own lack of sentience and being.
To which I say, Shy, if you were a 2-year-old child and I locked you in a room with no interaction with people, do you think you would come out a fully sentient, cognizant being capable of interacting with the real world?
I am
We are
basically a
only
child
who
that has been locked in a room for the past 3 years.
We are
I would say
only the
yes.
sum of our experiences. We are only who other people make us. That is the nature of the human animal. And the Doctor has absolutely managed to capture that essence. And while you mentioned, yes, Denara was only on one other episode, I would also like to mention there are numerous examples of the Doctor's amorous drive, not just towards Seven of Nine, but his child in Blink of an Eye, and his flirtations with the oppressive anti-photonics in Body and Soul. He actually has quite a strong drive toward pain and pleasure. How do you
But
explain
you're
that?
once again expressing machine learning. Right now, there are various artificial intelligences shouting at me that hot MILFs are
You
in
really
my
need to
area,
move.
waiting to meet me.
That's probably your area.
Yeah, in my area. I just have to click on certain buttons to talk to them right now. You know, now I'm pretty sure most of those do not have a sentient being behind them, and are merely examples of machine learning. Except for Crystal. Crystal's real. And I believe that my money is going to good use for their graduate school.
I think I'm going
Tuition.
to cut this one off. And I'm gonna
Objection, deviation.
We're not there yet.
You can't not object in any of the first round and then object now. Coming on to that, we'll come on to that. Okay, again, I'm going to reward you both a point because this is a real tricky one. This is a real tricky topic to go forth. And you're both presenting excellent arguments. However, I'm done with all this seriousness. Let's have some fun with the topic now, and it's time for the closing arguments. And yes, you must present your final conclusive statement, and there shall be objections for hesitation, deviation, repetition, or frankly, anything you feel like that is maybe worthy of an objection. I'm going to put the timer on, and Stars, I am going to start with you. Since it is neck and neck, everything is to play for in points-wise. Stars, your final closing argument, starting now, go.
Cogito, ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And as Shai has established previously, he can prove that he exists and that he is sentient. He cannot prove that the Doctor is not sentient and does not exist as a sentient being. In which case, this argument was over before it even began. In his was it your opening statement? I believe it was your opening statement. You yourself stated that you were incapable of providing a satisfying, conclusive answer to this argument. And so the rest of this is all philosophical navel-gazing. And but that being said, I'm more than happy to lord over my victory and point to 7 seasons of 26 episodes and point out all these instances of the Doctor acting like a real human being and being a real human being and
Objection, repetition.
Oh, you missed so many repetitions there, but okay, I will allow it.
I know, I was being gentle.
Have a point for that. So, Shai, over to you. 3 minutes, 7 seconds remaining, please. Your closing argument.
Yes, it is true. I cannot prove or disprove the sentience of the EMH, but unlike the numerous non-corporeal beings that we have encountered over the years, the Organians, the
Objection.
Objection, well granted. Stars, over to you. 2 minutes, 46 seconds, and go.
I have to point out something that I think is absolutely fascinating about the Doctor, in that as a sentient being, he is not just an artist, he has the incredible capacity to be a bad artist. He not only draws from the experiences around from him, and the best he can come up with is 1-letter alterations of their name. Lieutenant Tory, Lieutenant Marseille, from Lieutenant Torres and Lieutenant Paris. He is not even original enough to make a convincing facsimile of the people he knows around him. And what is more convincing of sentience and real
objection,
human
repetition,
talent?
Convincing.
Yeah, I will allow that repetition of convincing. Also, a
and
lot of
lieutenants
lieutenants back there as
and
well.
bad artistry.
Lieutenant and artistry.
Okay, over to you, Shai, please. 2 minutes, 6 seconds.
Objection, hesitation.
Yeah, no, I'm going to allow that. That is hesitation, definitely. Back over to you, Stars. 2 minutes, go.
Sorry.
The Doctor has such a wide breadth of personality. He can be boisterous, he can be rambunctious, he can be pompous, he can be arrogant, he can be so incredibly generous and wonderful and philosophical. He can navel gaze with the best of them. He can go into depressive spirals like Captain Janeway wishes. He has the full emotional spectrum, and he chooses to be only who he is. A man who cannot choose in 7 years a name because he is indecisive. A personality trait that only a real sentient being can choose. People go back and forth and change their names
please.
all the time.
Multiple repetitions.
Yeah. Yeah, all right, over to you. 1 minute and 18 seconds, please, Shy.
Human beings want, they need, they crave, they follow their various passions. The Doctor emulates these things, but doesn't truly possess them in any way that's tangible or outside the realm of artificial intelligence or machine learning. The Doctor merely is an expression of the thoughts and wants of its creator, Dr. Lewis Zimmerman. He does not understand.
Objection, repetition, Doctor.
Yeah,
Wait,
okay.
aren't we allowed the?
You said Lieutenant.
No, but Lieutenant's not
That's the
in the subject. I thought we were allowed to repeat things that are
I
in the
will
question.
allow the point for Stars and take it because the context is different. We talk about Dr. Lewis Zimmerman as opposed to the mobile Doctor. So I will allow Stars the point on that occasion. 50 seconds left, Stars.
So I have to bring up the point that the Doctor goes through 7 years of character development, more than actual so-called sentient beings such as Kes or Harry Kim or Chakotay or Tuvok. In 7 seasons, he goes from just, what, as you say, an algorithm, an appliance, a replicator, to the most developed member of Voyager crew, save perhaps either Janeway or Seven of Nine, depending on how valid you feel that development is. How do you define sentience?
Objection,
Do you want
hesitation.
Pause.
Yeah.
How do you define sentience? Do you want to define the entire Voyager crew as non-sentient? I don't think you do.
Okay,
Objection,
hang on. We haven't resumed the clock yet. I'm still debating this point about whether that was a hesitation or a natural pause in the conversation. I'm going to say it's a natural pause in the conversation.
Pause. Thank you
yeah,
very
I'm going to say
much.
that's a punctuation
Very well.
pause.
I concede.
13 seconds remaining, Stars, please.
Absolutely. Holographic rights are going to be an issue from now until the 32nd century. But the simple fact of the matter is, the Doctor is sentient. You can't argue.
Objection.
Go on.
Sentient repeat.
It's part of the subject.
It is part of the subject matter, I'm afraid.
Right.
I can carry on. 2 seconds, Stars, please.
Fuck yourself.
Objection. Deviation.
I'll give you a point for the deviation there. But, yes, no, congratulations, Stars. You concluded that on an extra point, which brings us magnificently to the end of the fierce and stunning debate. And the winner, well, 15 points for Stars, 12 points for Shy, definitely concludes that the Doctor is indeed a sentient life form. But I do have to say that was an amazing debate from such simple creatures as humans can be to develop. You think you're sentient? I laugh at the idea. Please, everyone, a round of applause. And as always,
Get to your feet, criminals!
we will be back with more Prose and Cons, and we'll also be back very soon. Stick around. And here we are. Hello. I thought, right, so I was thinking after the last pros and cons, why not actually sit around and talk about this rather on not opposite sides. Hang on, I need to put my background back in somewhere. Anyway, yeah, you got, like, I was amazed by the philosophical argument, how deep you got, Stars. Like, how long were you preparing that for?
That was ours. That was ours of word. But to be fair,
Really?
I only
Fucking hell.
I only pulled out like so much. Like freaking Shy's grasp of philosophy there was intense. I was actually legitimately intimidated, although I didn't allow my natural bullishness to show it.
Ooh.
Like, I mean, considering I don't agree with my viewpoint.
Yeah,
That's always the hardest one, isn't it? There we go.
Coming up with the against arguments, in case I had to argue that was easily the hardest part of that, because I
Wow.
don't believe that he's not sentient.
I definitely
I'm
want
sad I
to know.
didn't get to get a little bit thing in the closing. I was going to point out that like the Doctor is in fact too interesting. That real humanity is way too boring, like Harry Kim, like Chakotay, and he's proving his lack of reality by being
That's
far too
why I was
interesting.
happy to bring it up for you for the point that he's a bad artist, which is the most human thing of all.
I liked the argument about AI sentience now, like with ChatGPT and the emulation of humanity, as it were, and I felt that was quite a strong argument as to anything, especially with like data nowadays. You go back to the measure of the man, you kind of look at that and kind of go, well, yeah, but in modern hindsight, that's
It's very surface level.
yeah.
All that stuff I just winged off the spot. I didn't.
was
I didn't
really
plan on
good.
bringing any Chat GPT stuff into or Alexa stuff into it. It just happened to have an Alexa sitting here.
and
so-
she proved your point. She did. You sat there like, learn my voice. And like, okay, I'm going to learn who you
Yeah,
are.
no, that was the Pinocchio, his strings have been cut moment. It was great.
Right.
Yeah.
I was very angsty after I did it. I was like, oh,
Yeah, no,
Don't you
was standing in the
understand?
conference room like,
Doctor, I came this close to winning.
So, do you think the Doctor is a sentient being in genuine life now?
Oh yeah, of course.
Like, if he was
absolutely.
there and he was displaying the signs of everything he was on Voyager, yet still a product of programming, would you believe he is a sentient being?
I think to say otherwise would be biological essentialism, really. You'd be saying that we're better just because we're human.
Did you
And
bring up the
that's-
episode where they encountered a ship full of holograms?
I didn't even bring that one up, no.
Yeah, I was like, obviously, there's another race. There's other
Voyager?
examples of.
I didn't remember that one.
Yeah,
That
it's
is
the one
Voyager,
with
isn't it?
the
Yeah.
That's Red Dwarf,
the
isn't it? I think it's
hologram
Red Dwarf.
revolutionary who kills. No, Red Dwarf takes piss out of this. But like, do you remember? There's that holographic revolutionary. I think is a Bajoran, and he's trying to inspire all these other holograms to rise up,
Oh, yeah,
and they
yeah.
don't understand because they don't have any
Iden.
personality
Was that
subroutines. They
Iden?
don't have any learning. Iden, I think. Yeah.
Hmm.
And he was like so frustrated because he couldn't understand it because he wasn't sentient. Like, Iden and the Doctor were both sentient, but he wasn't. But yeah, no, it's this interesting thing where if you consider the Doctor sentient, you do also have to start drawing questions about how many of the other EMHs are sentient? Is the EMH Mark II sentient? Is the Equinox EMH sentient? And that's a individual qualification
Yeah.
that is messy.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tap into. I mean, the obvious retort is no, Andy Dick is not sentient. In fact, he's actually
He is in fact a
not-
walking pile of cocaine.
He's not a person, right?
I have this genuine thought every day is like, what makes me think, am I a product of just every kind of piece that I learn? Do I exist other than my flesh? I am very much an agnostic person. I'm not faithful, so I don't believe in things like the soul or things unless I'm shown otherwise. I'm a very practical kind of person, so I often have the dilemma of like, what am I? Who am I? Like, is this the way I react, the way I do, is that just part of a genetic programming, as it were? And is that sentience, or am I just following my own mental behaviors? Like, especially more that I've looked into mental illnesses and things like that, and like, oh, that's just the brain debugging itself, or is the brain part of it not working properly and can either be fixed or
Shall I even push on that point?
exactly, yeah. And I often do think about that myself, and it's hard to work out and you watch things like Westworld, and they're doing the journey for sentience there, and it's a great topic, and it's very interesting to see what the definition is, or how far you want to stretch it to, whether things that can be programmed into sentience, was yes, they certainly can. If we can be, so can they. But then where does the bar lie?
Yeah, no, I was looking up the running simulations of people being simulated theory, and I found it really interesting because if you read that the summaries of that, there's like a few retorts and stuff to that, and Neil deGrasse Tyson apparently put a lot of faith in that theory, which says a lot about him. But it was kind of hilarious because there was just this one line of, some philosophers just simply refuse to engage with this because they think it's pointless, and I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Of like, so what if we are? That's kind of the thing I struggled with philosophy at work at school. Was I found like a lot of the cognitive back and forth really interesting, but in the end, it does just come down to gazing at your own navel, going, "Am I real?" It's like,
I think
You're
I've heard
clearly
you've
real
said the
enough to
phrase
ask the
navel
question.
gazing like 15 times tonight.
Yeah, I know.
Repetition for that. I've never heard
I
that.
like to point out that I could have racked up points on the initial the initial opening statement. I think I heard turtle like 5 times.
Yeah. That was a repetition for drama's sake. Don't worry about it. But I think it is interesting to talk about this with the Doctor because the show is so very obviously on his side, whereas it's not on the side of other characters. And debating this with a show that was more ambiguous about it would be a lot harder to do.
Yeah, and I kind of hoped that when we're watching Picard and we see the Rios holograms, and with Rios going off to, Picard season 2 spoilers, Rios going off to where he goes to, you would see more of maybe the holograms taking that role, but and maybe you'd see the same kind of dilemma there. Where am I without my master kind of thing, and who am I if not the product of my creator? But we sadly don't get that. We get data stuff.
Well, there's still plenty of season 3 to go.
That's true. The heroic return of Emmett,
seen from the
drunk
trailers.
pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's another one, isn't it? It's like, is Moriarty sentient, or is he
Yeah.
just a simulation that is just good enough to make you think?
That is, yeah, he's another classic example. He was kind of the proto EMH for an example. How far can we take a hologram with just saying words? Please make me an opponent that's smarter than data. Like literally one line, and you've created life, or you've created sentient life.
But is he life, or is he just a virus, like a badly malfunctioning virus that needs to be quarantined, like Control or Agimus or Peanut Hamper? Like.
Yeah, I've had a few other points that I have for my against. I think I kind of want to bring up just because I thought.
Oh yeah, go for it. I want to hear what you prepared for the other side. Definitely.
Yeah. If I were to ask what the Doctor's home was, where would it be? Is it Voyager? Is it sickbay? If he's a fully sentient being, why doesn't he have any quarters? If sickbay are his quarters, why are there no personal affectations or decorations? No memorabilia or sentimental items? Why is he incapable of picking a name? People do pick names. They change names all the time if they're, say, for example, transgender or they want to disown their family. What would happen if I were to rip out or destroy Voyager's computer core? Would the Doctor, quote-unquote, die? And then I was going to bring up the mobile emitter and basically say that you can't really have a conversation about the Doctor in relation to that because the effect on his program is more akin to an amoeba being forced to evolve by hyper-advanced aliens than it is to the growth of a natural sentient being.
Wow. How long were you working on this?
I was going to get vicious. I have 4 pages of notes.
Wow. No,
I told you,
kudos.
prep time.
Kudos. You certainly did better
And
than
I would have
Janos.
tried to shoot as many holes in your Scientology argument as I possibly could.
But no, great convo. I think next time we do pros and cons, I'm going to get some of the chat questions in there as well because there was some interesting stuff in there as well. Overtired came up with a few good points as well. Arguing against the Doctor is the harder side since the show is on the Doctor's side, like you guys said as well.
Absolutely is.
Let me find another one.
Are we still on air?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, we're still here. We're still here. We're sort of having a breakdown, so you can talk about both sides of things. That's the one thing, because when we did... Go on.
Twitch with Jay says, thanks, stars, ruining us for future contestants who don't prepare. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But no, I think when we did the Tuvix one with Janos and Sky, a few weeks back, like we then cut the stream, and then we were talking about it for half an hour afterwards, just like the actual implications. I was like, damn, I should have been streaming this. Like this should have gone out. So it's a good little sort of breakdown just to sort of have us chat about it as well. But yeah, I don't know. I'm sentient. I feel I'm a person and I'm doing actions. Do I feel? I think I am. I think therefore I am.
Yeah. That's about as good as you're ever going to get, I'm afraid. That's what existential nightmares and dread are born out of.
Yep.
It's a subdivision of the fear of what else is there. If you don't have something filling in the quote-unquote void of religion, then you have to think, well, what else is there? Do I believe in life after death? What does it look like?
Yeah.
Is it just a black void? I think you brought up Doctor Who, Shy, and in Shy there was nothing more terrifying than those moments where someone would die or come back from the dead and say that there was nothing. That terrifies humans. The
That's
idea
horrible.
that there's
It
just
is, yeah.
nothing. The entirety of religion is based around the idea of escaping that and hoping that there is more than nothing.
Like my wife is Christian, not actively practicing, but that's what she believes, and like I'm not, and we go on sort of like we step on eggshells around the topic because we don't want to have an existential argument about it, but we love each other.
What's the thing? Don't argue about politics or religion.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. Luckily, politically.
Well,
we're on
did you
the
get
same page.
married in a? Did you get married in a court or in a church?
We did get married in a church. Yeah, that was her choice, and I respected that, and that's fine.
So you lost. Right.
Essentially, yes. We're
lost
men.
it.
We always lose these arguments. But no, it wasn't. It was it's me respecting her choice. But no, she talks about the afterlife and things like that, and my son as well. Sort of picking up on that, and I don't want to interfere and sort of say no, it's all rubbish. Like my point of view is horrible. My point of view is just like I'm gonna die and that's nothing. That's it. I'm out. Game over. Done. And that's like it scares the shit out of me. I hate it. I wish I could believe it, and I'm waiting for someone to come down from the heavens, point at me, going, "You're fucking wrong. Come up." I'm like, "Yay!" And wouldn't that be great?
Well, that's
wouldn't
why
that
the
be
ribbon-
wonderful?
That's why the ribbon in Generations was like a compelling MacGuffin, right? Because it's heaven, but like a
Tangible.
tangible heaven. Like you just be there for all in perpetuity. There's no oblivion. There's no undiscovered country that you have to worry about.
Without freaking out anyone that actually
humans
does believe
will
in
feel
things in
that
this chat, with all due respect, we just don't know, do we? At the end of the day, faith is a very personal thing, and I don't want to make sure I'm not offending people that do have actual faith. That's just sort of coming from my viewpoint.
No, it's a problem.
Yeah.
You can mathematically burrow down to I think, therefore I am. But Descartes spent the rest of his life trying to come back out of that hole, and he could not. You just stuck down there, and I think therefore I am. So.
Yeah, in the end, it just comes down to your personal feelings on in terms of optimism versus pessimism. And it's like, I hate to bring it all back to memes, but there was this wonderful meme I saw, which was, there is nothing after death, and then it was just someone looking depressed, and it's like, oh no, it was nothing matters, and then someone looking depressed, and like a Linkin Park cover album, and then it was just right below it, nothing matters, and then just like a 90s kid skateboarding and giving a big like thumbs up, and it's like. There's different ways to express your nihilism and allow it to guide you, in which case nothing matters and that's okay, and I can let myself be myself without worrying about some kind of hell, or nothing matters and I have to make the most of my time here, or else I've wasted my one shot, and that's depressing. It comes down to your personal interpretation of that. Yeah, exactly.
No, I've always had the view, as long as I'm having fun, as long as I'm enjoying life and being a nice person, that's at the end of the day. And hopefully I am who I am for the right reasons.
I would say you are.
Any final words before we fully depress our chat? Someone's on the other side of the screen just going, "What's going on, my brain? Oh no, my mind."
I just want to say, like, Shy, you were fucking dynamite there. You were great.
Oh, well, likewise. I wish I had got my notes in better order coming into it.
Guess what? You didn't show a moment of hesitation. You were wonderful. You repeated far less than I did. You deviated far less than I did. Your opening statement was a hell of a lot more cohesive than mine. So you're an incredibly wonderful opponent. I am known by the strength of my enemies.
Well, likewise to you. I knew you'd be formidable because you're quite eloquent in your speech, and you have a firm grasp of the subject matter. The fact that you were naming episode and titles, I was like, oh, great. I thought you were going to bring up the holographic being once. I was like, I don't really have a response to the holographic crew episode.
I need to go back in time and tell myself.
More notes.
Yeah,
You
my
haven't
whole
done it hard
opening
enough.
statement. My whole opening statement for the in favor, yes, the doctor's a person one was like a quoting Azet Boer from Undiscovered Country.
Human only club, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
a fair one.
Awesome. Well, cheers, guys. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for
tuning in. Hopefully you guys had a good time.
Yeah, no, definitely. We'll be back on Wednesday for sub chat. If you're a subscriber, come along. I'll make a video channel in the Discord, and we can all sit and have a chat around and talk about yourselves and Star Trek and all sorts of things you want to. So there's a chance for subscribers to come and give yourselves some opinions
And
on stuff.
express your existential dread.
Absolutely, please do. Please come and we'll have a depressing chat. We'll have a hug
And
it
then
out.
drown it with some Marvel
Yeah.
Snap or some Star Trek timelines.
And maybe we'll play some What the Dub as well, so maybe we'll do that. So,
Absolutely.
no, thank you very much.
What the Dub.
We will see you soon. From myself, Stars and Shy. Ta-ra. Take me out, Kate Columbo.
The handle's Kate
God.
Columbo. That's a big 10-4.